Hi students, I'm going to talk about how to analyze experimental data in this lecture. And so I have an old data sheet from a study that I did a few years ago in the Philippines. Remember when I was talking during the research methods lecture and I said, let's see, I was using an example of fading affect bias. Do you remember that concept? Where negative memories sort of fade over time and positive memories, the emotional intensity associated with positive memories stays pretty stable over time. All right, well, this was one of those studies that I've done on fading affect bias. And you can see we had 32 participants in the study. Ages, we can probably figure out the age range here if we want to. I'll just hit equals under age and try to find the maximum age and then the minimum age. So the maximum age was 87, an 87-year-old in this. And then let's see if we can find minimum so I can tell you what the range of ages were. Okay, minimum. And this is sort of reporting the central tendency of age, and you would put this in your methods section, okay? So the minimum age in this one was 25. Okay, so ages range from 25 to 87. And of course you would want to report in your methods section the average, or in this case maybe the median age, because there's such a large range of ages, right? So this is the average age. I'll just put that next to that. But we also might want to report the median age in a study. So let me find median. I'll go to more functions and scroll down to median. See if I can find it. Median is here, okay? And I'll click OK, and then I'll go through the numbers and just get the median age as well. All right. So the median age was 46 years old and the average age was 47.375, okay? And if you're going to report the average age, then you also want to report the standard deviation of ages. So I'm going to go to more functions and find standard deviation in this list. Okay, STDEV is standard deviation. And I'll select the ages, and let's find out the standard deviation was 15.12262, okay? So you would report all of this, the range of ages and the average and the median and the standard deviation, in the method section when you're talking about your participants, okay? Now, many of these participants came from Central Philippines, and so this is sort of demographic information that we got from the community members who were in this study. They also listed their employment, so some were fishermen, some were housewives, some were laundry workers, some were vendors, and things like that. You know, if that's important, you would also report that in your methods section. They also talked about what kind of house they lived in before a super typhoon came and hit their area, and then what kind of structure they had after the typhoon hit them, okay? So that might be important to report if you're, just going to add all of this into your methods section, okay? We also asked how many siblings they had, and so you could put a range on that. It looks like 1 through 11 siblings, brothers or sisters, right? And then we asked some other things. We had them do some scales, depression scale, personality scale. So I have all those data for each participant going across each row in this spreadsheet, okay? Now what's important to us is we want to know from their memories, their memory ratings, how they felt at the time the positive memory occurred, okay? And then at the time, or right now, how do they feel about the memory, okay? And they reported on a scale from extremely pleasant, which was a 3, okay? And then, these would be pleasant ratings. 0 would be right in the middle. And then -3 is the other pole of the ratings. So it was from -3, it was extremely unpleasant, all the way to +3, and that means pleasant, okay? And then how are you feeling right now? It's the same scale, -3 or +3 or somewhere in the middle. That's the way we set up those scales, okay? And then we got an absolute difference score, okay? And that's going to be important when we enter the data, okay? There's not much difference between how it felt when it happened and how it felt now, it looks like. Many of these are 0 scores for the pleasant memories, okay? Now we'll move over to the second type of memory recording, and we did the same thing. We gave them a scale from, from time it occurred, which is here, -3 to +3, and then how are you feeling now? And this memory was about the typhoon, okay? So it was a very negative experience. And then we got some difference scores, okay? What is the absolute difference from the time it occurred to now? And you can see the first participant rated this typhoon experience as -1 when it occurred, and now they rate it as +2, okay? So it seems like the fading affect bias is happening for this first person, okay? All right, so how do we do this? We're going to probably dummy code the positive experience and then dummy code the negative experience as like 1 and 2. And then we're going to put in the difference scores as the dependent variables, okay? Let's just see how that happens. Let me open up an SPSS spreadsheet, and I'll show you how to organize the data. Let's say we're doing an experiment like this with children, okay? And I said, those kinds of experiments have not been done yet, so it might be a good idea maybe to use this or something similar as a topic. It's all up to your group, okay? The first thing I want to call this first variable is valence, okay? Do you know what valence means? It's positive, neutral, or negative, okay? What is the valence of the memory? All right, we're going to put in values. I'm going to click in the values box, and you see this blue button. I'll click on that, and let's say 1 will represent a positive memory, and I'll click Add, and then a 2 would mean the typhoon memory or the negative memory, okay? And I'll click Add there. So now we have dummy codes for the types of memory, which is the independent variable. In other words, I asked them, describe a positive memory and then describe your experience in the negative, the super typhoon, okay? And now we're going to have difference scores. So I'll just label this one difference scores or diff scores. And that's the dependent variable, okay? So we have two columns of data we have to enter here. I'm going to enter the difference scores first for the positive experience. Okay, so where's the difference scores? It's right here. Okay, I'm going to grab that column of data and I'll hit Control-C on my keyboard, copy, and then here I'll click Control-V, paste. Okay, now these are all positive memories, so I'm just going to label these as the dummy code 1, going down the first column. Okay, so I have those. Now I need to find the difference scores for the typhoon memory, or the negative memory, right? So I'll move back over here. Here is the difference score for the typhoon. All right, so larger numbers mean greater fading. I'm going to click Control Copy there. And under this difference score column, I'll just continue with the difference scores for the negative experience. So I'm going to dummy code these difference scores negative. And those were 2s, right? So I'll go down the column and label these 2s. All right, now, when I look at these data, I have 2 levels of the independent variable. And so if I have just 2 levels, I'm going to do what's called an independent samples t-test. Okay, we also did this with the survey data on the previous lecture. All right, but whenever you have 2 groups, you're going to do an independent samples t-test. All right, let me go to Analyze and Compare Means. And then I'll find independent samples t-tests. It's right here. All right, now valence, or positive or negative memories, is going to be the grouping variable. And I have to define or put in the dummy codes for each of the groups. So group 1 is positive memories, group 2 is negative memories. Those are the dummy codes. And then I'll click Continue. Okay. Difference scores are the dependent variable. You can also call those the test variables here in SPSS. All right, if you've missed some of this information so far, pause this video and go back and watch it again, okay? Watch the part that you missed. All right, to do this test, I'm just going to click OK. And let's see what we have. We have positive memories, the mean fading, that's what these numbers mean for the average. The mean fading was 1.125, okay? And here's the standard deviation. For negative memories, the mean fading was 1.87. And here's the standard deviation of that, okay? When we go down to the independent samples t-test, we always go for the candy first, okay? In other words, we want to look to see if there's a significant difference between these 2 means, okay? If there is a significant difference, that would be shown if the significance value is 0.05 or less, okay? If there's a significant difference between the 2 means, and it looks like, yes, we have a significant difference between these 2 means, and the results of the t-tests are T62 in parentheses equals negative 9.90, P is equal to 0.0001. All right, now I've just kind of gone through that, but let's open up a Word document and write this results section as we should in an example. All right, I'm going to put the results heading here, and I'm going to bold results. All right, the first thing we always do is sort of tell the reader what we had predicted in the prediction section at the end of the introduction section, okay? And this, just kind of helps the reader not have to go back and look at the prediction and see that we have actually analyzed the predictions that we predicted, okay? So, the reader will recall that the hypothesis in this research was that the emotional intensity associated with negative memories will fade over time, while the emotional intensity associated with positive memories will not fade over time. Now, I've just given the reader sort of a summary of what we predicted, all right, in the first paragraph. And this is the way we write a results section for an experiment. All right, now we have to state what kind of a test, what kind of statistical test did we perform on the data? All right, remember what we did was right here, an independent samples t-test. Okay, so I have to state that. An independent samples t-test was conducted on the data. All right, remember to always italicize test letters, I guess, a t-test. All right, an independent samples t-test was conducted on the data with valence positive, negative of memory measured on difference scores obtained from emotional intensity ratings at the event and currently, okay? So that's the way we would state what the dependent variable is, all right? That's right here. So you always talk about the independent variable first, which I did, and then you talk about the dependent variable second, all right? Now remember, an independent variable is something that the experimenter, varies, okay? We could think about an experiment where I show 25 people a video that is very violent, okay? And then I show another 25 people a video of a waterfall, okay? It's just something that is neutral. And then let's say I want to measure how aggressive people are after they view the videos, okay? So you would expect that maybe the group that watched the violent video would act more aggressively after they watched the video than the people who just watched the waterfall, okay? We would expect that the people in the waterfall condition would not exhibit too much aggression, okay? Because they're sort of soothed by the waterfall video. All right. So that's an independent and dependent variable. The independent variable was the video, and it was either violent or neutral. And then we measured aggression, right? Okay. So if you're doing an experiment, make sure you know what is my independent variable and what is my dependent variable, okay? All right, now, after we state what kind of test we have and how we measured it in the test, we have to state the results, okay? Results showed that negative memories faded and positive memories did not fade, supporting our hypothesis. We never say, I proved the hypothesis. No, we never prove anything in psychology, but we do say we support our hypothesis, okay? That's the way we do it. All right. Now, something I need to do in this sentence, I have to put means and standard deviations for each of the parts of the independent variable. So what was the mean fading for negative? The mean was 1.88. 1.88. Standard deviation was, okay, let me see if I can just flip between these two without having to do too much. Let's see. Oh, no, I can't. What can I do here to work between these two screens? Let me just, again, sort of move them side by side where I can read what's going on. Okay, there we go. All right, so I have mean 1.88, standard deviation is 0.94. And then I'll end my parenthesis there, and then I will italicize standard deviation and italicize mean. All right, I have to also report mean for positive memories. All right, the mean for positive was 0.13. Standard deviation was 0.34. Okay, again, I'll italicize standard deviation, and I will italicize mean. Okay, now after this statement, I need to give the results of the t-test, okay? I'm going to go T62, which is the degrees of freedom, equals negative 9.90. Then the p-value, or the significance value, equals 0.000, and do you remember what I'm supposed to do at the end of this string of numbers when I just have 0.000? I'm supposed to put a 1 after that, okay? So now I've taken all of this stuff from my SPSS results, and it's all right here in my results section, okay? So I have the means for negative and the means for positive, and I also have the results of the t-test, and then I have the significance value there, and I show that it supports our hypothesis, okay? And then I might even say means of valence are shown below in figure 1. All right, let's say we want to make a pretty figure to put in our results section, okay? How do I do that? Well, I'm going to go back to Excel. Let me just add a sheet, and then I'm going to put the means of each of the conditions. Let's see, it was 1.88 for negative, right? I'll copy that. I have 1.88 for negative. I'll put negative here. Negative memories. And then for positive, it was 0.13. So I'll copy that average, paste it right here below, and then I'll type in positive memories, okay? And I'll stretch this out so I see that I have everything typed out correctly. I do. All you have to do is put the means for each of the conditions, okay? Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select all 4 of these cells. Okay? I'm going to go up here to the top to the Insert tab, and I want a bar chart. So here in the middle you see there is a 2-dimensional bar chart that I can make. So I clicked on that. Okay? Now I need to fix some things to make this an APA style. All right? I'm going to delete this chart title. I'm going to delete these grid lines. I need a nice x-axis that's black. So I'm going to go over here to line. I want a solid line that is black for the x-axis. I'll click on the y-axis and do the same thing. Solid line, black. All right, now let's look at the figure so far. It looks nice, right? However, on this y-axis, usually in a journal article, you'll note that there are some cross marks going across from the numbers, right, to the bars themselves. So how do I do that? I want to have tick marks. Do you see the tick marks down here? I'm going to click on Major Type, Cross. Okay, so this was Axis Options, Tick Marks, Major Type, and Cross. And now you can see tick marks going along the y-axis. Now I need to label the 2 axes. This is the x-axis going horizontally, right? I'll just click outside here somewhere, and up here on the left-hand side it says Add Chart Element. Okay, I'm going to click on that, and we have axis titles right here. I'm going to first put one on the horizontal axis. All right, and so this variable is called valence. Okay, so I'm just going to say valence there. Now I'll click out of that, and I'll go to Add Chart Element. We're also going to include an axis title for the vertical axis. Okay, now what do these numbers represent? These were mean difference scores, right? So let's see, how should we put this? Mean difference scores, okay? And I suppose that's good enough from the description in our results section, right? Difference scores were the rating at the time the event occurred minus the rating now. And and you take the absolute difference of those scores, right? So that's explained in the results section. Now, these bars are blue right now. I don't like that. I'm going to double click on the first bar and double click again. And here, I'm going to go to Fill. Okay, I want to fill it with a pattern. So I'm going to click on Pattern Fill. I want the pattern to be black and white, so I'm going to choose black here. Okay. Now, let's just represent negative memories with something that's darker, okay? I don't know. That's a little dark, maybe something like that, okay? Now, I'll double-click on the second blue bar. I want it to also have a pattern fill. Now, these represent positive memories, so maybe this will be a little lighter than what you see in the negative bar, maybe a little lighter like that, okay? All right, so negative, this is the bar, the average bar for negative memories on fading. This is the bar for fading on positive memories. Let's do a couple other things. I'm going to click in the white space, and I don't want any border lines, so I'm going to click no line there. And also, I want to make these titles a bit more large, okay? They look kind of small here. I'm going to go to the Home tab. Right now, all the font or the text is in 10-point font. Let's just make it 12-point to make it a little larger so people can read. what you have in the chart or the figure. I'm going to right-click and hit copy on this figure. I'm going to go back to my results section now, and I'm going to click Control-V on my keyboard, which means paste. Okay. Now, in a figure, we always have a figure caption. In other words, we have a figure description that goes underneath the figure. I'm going to call this Figure 1. Now, what does this figure show? Okay. It shows the mean difference scores for negative memories and positive memories. Okay, and that's a pretty concise, short description of what's going on in this figure. The last thing I have to do is italicize Figure 1. All right, what's that look like? Does that look pretty professional? This is probably something you might see in a journal article, right? And it's nice to put a figure in your results section, okay? You might have multiple figures. It depends on what kind of an experiment you have designed, okay? But that's the way you write a results section. That's the way you do the independent samples t-test in SPSS. I'm going to do one more example just in case you're doing a different sort of an experiment. Let's say that you have 3 conditions in this experiment. In other words, you have participants give you a positive memory and a typhoon memory and then just any kind of negative memory. All right, that would be a 3-condition study. All right, I didn't do this in this work here. Okay, so we have to make up some data in order to put it in our SPSS spreadsheet. But I'm going to go back to SPSS, go to Variable View, and I'm going to change valence values. All right, so I'll click in Values on the blue button, and let's say we have a 3rd condition, and we'll call this, I don't know, maybe you had them describe just a general positive memory from their life, and then just a generic negative memory, something that happened, and then you have something really impactful, like a death in the family, okay? So a memory of the death of a loved one, okay? Death of a loved one. And that'll be the 3rd condition, all right? So let's say that we have 3 sets of data instead of just 2. I'll click OK. Now, we have to make up some data. How many people did I have? I had 32, right? 32 in each condition. So let's say I need to put 32 threes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, 32. And then let's make up some different scores. Maybe these are, I don't know, larger, maybe. I'll just make some up here. Okay, and now we have data for 3 conditions. Now in this case, you remember in a t-test, if we only have 2 conditions, we're going to do that independent samples t-test, right? But now we have 3 or more conditions, okay? So we have to do a different kind of a test. It's called an ANOVA, okay? I'll go to Analyze, Compare Means, and I want an analysis of variance. That's this last choice here, okay? I'm going to move valence into the factor box because in analysis of variance we call the independent variable a factor, Okay, it has 3 or more levels. Then the different scores go in the dependent variable list. All right, now there's something else that we have to do before we just click OK. The overall ANOVA will tell us, if it's significant, that at least one of the means is different from the other means, but we don't know which mean is different from which other mean because we have 3 means in this case, okay? So we have to do something called a post hoc test, okay? And usually the best kind of post hoc test we can do is not a turkey test, it's called a Tukey test, okay? There was a guy named Tukey that came up with this test. So I'm going to select Tukey and click Continue. Is there anything in options that I need? Yes. I want to know the means and standard deviations, that's the descriptive statistics, for each of the three levels of the independent variable. So I'll click Descriptive and Continue, okay? So I did Post Hoc, clicked Tukey, went to Options, clicked Descriptive. Now I can hit OK. All right. So here, let's look at this. It looks like the overall ANOVA is significant. At least one of the means is different from the other means. But we don't know which means are different until we look at the post hoc Tukey tests, okay? And so let's look at this. Wherever it says significant, that means that those means are different. So death of a loved one versus positive memory, those two means are different. You see that? It's 0.0001. This one, the negative memory versus the positive memory, also, those means are different. Okay, so we have at least 2 that are different so far. Let's go down here. It says the positive memory versus the negative memory. Well, that's the same test as this negative versus positive, right? But that's also significant. And then down here you'll see death of a loved one versus positive. That's the same information we got up here is significant, okay? So we know that both of these, the negative memory and the death of a loved one memory, are significantly different than the positive memory, all right? How do we write the results section on this? All right, I'm just going to change a few things here. Okay, the reader will recall that the hypothesis in this research was that the emotional intensity associated with negative and death memories, okay, will fade over time. So I'm going to put those together. Maybe that was our hypothesis to begin with, right? While the emotional intensity associated with positive memories will not fade over time. So now we have 3 levels that we talked about in the prediction, right? Okay, now we're not doing an independent samples t-test this time. We're doing an analysis of variance. Okay, and usually we call that an ANOVA. Okay, so I'll put that in parentheses. An analysis of variance, ANOVA, was conducted on the data with valence, positive, negative, death of a loved one, okay, of memory, measured on difference scores obtained from the ratings at the event and currently, okay? So now we have the 3 levels of this variable, and we're doing an analysis of variance, okay? Results showed that negative memories, okay, faded, comma, death of a loved one memories faded, and I need to get that mean and standard deviation, right? So let's see, death of a loved one, we just made up these data, but it's 1.91 for the mean, and standard deviation is 0.995. You would round that up to 1.0, right? Okay. So we want to round it up to 1.0. Okay. And negative and positive memories did not fade. And now we want to give the results of the overall or the omnibus ANOVA. ANOVA gives us something called F. Do you see that? F. It's right there in the ANOVA table. All right. Now, in an ANOVA, we have to report two sets of degrees of freedom. Do you see DF right here, degrees of freedom? We're going to report degrees of freedom between groups. That's 2, comma, and then within groups it's 93. So it's 2, 93 in this case. Okay, so it's going to be 2, 93 is equal to, and now I put the F value next. The F value is 50.12. Okay, if you round it. 50 point, what was it, 92? 50.12, I'm sorry. Okay, 50.12. And then we have a p-value, and I think it was 0001, right? Yeah, it's 0.0001. Okay, go back and italicize P. Make sure your F is italicized there. All right, and I'll put a comma after the analysis report, and I'll say supporting our hypothesis, okay? The means of valence are shown in Figure 1. Well, before I talk about Figure 1, I have to report on the follow-up Tukey test. All right, so multiple comparisons. Multiple comparisons revealed that, and what was the result of that again? It was negative and death memories were significantly different from positive memories, right? And those were all 0.0001. So I can just say that in words. Revealed that negative and death of a loved one memories were significantly different than positive memories. And in parentheses, I'm just going to say all P's were equal to 0.0001. And that covers all the P's, right? If we had different P-values, like, I don't know, one of them was 0.01 and one was 0.0001, then we list those out, okay? But in this case, they're all the same. It's all 0.0001. So I'm just going to put all those in a bucket right there in parentheses, okay? Now, I should say Tukey multiple comparisons, okay? Because that will tell the reader what kind of post hoc test we did, okay? And now we'll say means of valence are shown below. I have to go back now and delete my old chart, my old figure, and now I need death of a loved one, memories, and I need the mean for that, and that was what? 1.91. So I'll just put that right here. Oops, 91. Okay, and now I have 3 bars that are going to be shown in my bar chart, right? I'll select all this information, hit Insert, go to the middle to the bar charts, 2D, and now you see we have a bar for death of a loved one memories, negative memories, and positive, okay? I'm just going to quickly go through all the steps to clean up this figure so that I can make it something that is to APA style. All right, so I'm going to have a line that's solid on the x-axis, a line that's solid on the y-axis. I want cross tick marks on the y-axis, so the tick marks, where were they at? It would be in one of these. Where's tick marks? Here we go. It's in the one with the 3 bars here. I'll go tick marks, major type, cross. I want each of these bars to have a different pattern, so I'll double click, go back to this bucket, fill. I want a pattern fill. This is death of a loved one, so it should be blacker, I guess, than the rest. I'll double click on negative, pattern fill, maybe a little bit lighter. And then for positive memories, pattern fill, and maybe lighter, okay? So now I have those 3. What else did I do? I added axis titles on the X and Y axis. I hit add chart element, axis titles, horizontal. We called this one valence. Valence. And then I added one on the Y axis as well, vertical. We called this mean difference scores, right? And then I wanted to have the font be big enough where we can see it, okay? So I pulled it up to a 12. Does that still work fairly well? It looks like it, okay? All right, I'm going to get rid of the border line, so no line on the border. I am going to hit Control Copy, and I'm going to get rid of this old figure that we had before. I'll just click Delete. Then I'm going to paste in my new figure with 3 bars this time, okay? I'll just change the figure caption to read mean difference scores for death of a loved one, negative memories, and positive memories, okay? So this gives me the information that's in this figure. The figure is all set up pretty well. It looks pretty nice. And this is the way you write a results section for 3 or more conditions in an independent variable, okay? So some of you, if you're running experiments, you might have just 2 conditions, 2 groups, right? You're going to do an independent samples t-test for that, okay? Some of you might have 3 groups or 3 different conditions. Maybe younger children, middle children, and adolescents or something like that. Well, in that case, you're going to run an ANOVA or an analysis of variance, just like we did. Do the follow-up post hoc test, the Tukey multiple comparison test, and then you'll create your results section like this, okay? Now, if you have any questions about any of this that I've taught about surveys or about experiments, please email me, get hold of me, and I'll help you, okay? All right, I hope we learned a lot during this 2-lecture set for you in terms of using SPSS and also analyzing data, okay? All right, you guys take care. I appreciate it.